Hi there and welcome. So good to have you with me today. Today we are going to be talking about iridology, stress, depression, anxiety, and ADD, ADHD. This is a hot topic. My goodness, we've had so many people register for this mini class. It's been really pretty amazing. So this is an interactive webinar. I'm going to be sharing a lot of information with you about a lot of different things, and how I know that you are ready for information is by your interaction. So feel free to say hi in the chat box. And if you've got comments or questions as you go, as we're going along, pop them into that chat box so that we can have interaction. The more you play with me in my sandbox, the more you're going to get from me. All right. And we are recording this for you to view again later, should you decide you want to do that. And certainly for people who are not able to be with us today. So good to see some of my students with us, some of my graduates with us. Really, really good to see that. So thank you again for being here. We are going to go a little bit deep today. And so it's really important for you to know a little bit about who I am and where I come from and why I speak with such confidence on these topics. And so one of the first things that I want to lay out for you is that iridology shows us where inherent strengths and weaknesses are. And you're going to need, if you are a practitioner and you want to use iridology well, you're going to need to have modalities to work with as well. So nutrition or herbology or homeopathy or something, so that you can use iridology, not just to help you understand your client, but to help you create programs for your client. Because you want to get results for your client, right? That's why they are coming to you. They want results and you want results for your client as well. My name is Judith Cobb. I am a level 3 IPA certified iridologist and a level 3 certified instructor as well. We have to renew our credentials every 2 years, which is why these badges look like I've only been at it for 2 years. But I have been an IPA certified iridology instructor for about a decade now, and I've been an iridologist for, well, since 1979 when I started studying this. I started teaching in the early 1980s. I certified for the first time with IPA in 1993, actually. And I got into holistic healing because I had health problems. And the medical world wasn't addressing those problems, wasn't getting me anywhere, wasn't giving me any kind of satisfactory answers. And so I decided to look elsewhere and ended up in holistic healing. I've designed and taught many different types of holistic healing courses and many books. The only book that's in print or is available right now is the Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology textbook. It is available only to students who are registered in my Dynamic Iridology program. It is a digital downloadable book. I am also a nutrition professional. I'm associated with CanPro and CanP here in Canada, as well as a master herbalist, and I'm associated with the Alberta Herbalist Association. Lovely, lovely organizations, all three of these. Just wanted to share a little bit, just giving you a heads up, because I am going to be sharing with you a little bit about the Dynamic Iridology course towards the end of our time together today, and I hope you'll stay with me to hear that. Jack, one of my certified grads, is saying she is an awesome teacher. Thank you so much for that, Jack. I really appreciate that. Kimberly Zadalis, also a grad. You can find her testimonial on the IPA website. She says, if you're wondering which iridology course to take, you can stop looking. You've found it. Judith Cobb is an excellent instructor with many years of experience. She is a caring and compassionate person who is dedicated to the field of iridology and her students. I personally practice both Eastern and Western philosophy medicine and was very impressed with the layout of her program. She makes it easy for her students to balance work, life, and study. So I apologize that I'm speaking really quickly. I have so much information I want to share with you today. And you're going to have to, if you've got to watch the replay, you might want to watch it on 3/4 speed to make it up. Veronica is also a student. She says, I'm a new student, love this course. Thank you, Veronica. Really appreciate that. So the next course is starting on January 25th. And if you have a college level anatomy and physiology course already under your belt for anything else, You know, whether you're master or a herbalist and you had to do a separate anatomy and physiology course, you got a grade over 80%, you're a registered nurse, an LPN, an RMT or an LMT, a PT, a homeopath, whatever your background, if you've got an A&P course under your belt and you're interested in learning details about the dynamic iridology course, use that link, tiny URL. You'd think I'd have that where I could put it in. One of these days, I will do that. Dynamic dash iridology. Just make sure I spelled everything right. There you go. That should be in your, why is that not going? Because I hit the wrong button. There we go. Okay, there you go. Schedule a time to chat with me. This is not a high pressure chat. It's an opportunity for me to find out what your goals are, what your training is, and for us to decide, is this actually a good fit for you? All right. And if it is a good fit, I'll invite you to enroll. If it's not a good fit, I will give you some coaching and some direction as to either how to prepare to get enrolled or other things that might be a better fit for you. I've been in the wellness industry for over 4 decades. So I've got a lot of experience under my belt, and I really like to help potential iridologists get off on the right foot and get started solidly. All right, let's get on with this. Oops, did that too fast. Let me pop back one. So in constitutional iridology, we call these wrinkles in the eyeball contraction furrows. In the dynamic iridology course, you will learn to distinguish between 7 different types of contraction furrows, what each one means, why each one has what each one's unique features are, and the importance of each one. So today we're only going to do a high-level overview of the general concept of contraction furrows. Now, I know some of you have iridology training from other sources. I would love to know, what are some other names that you have learned for these wrinkles in the eyeball? If you want to pop those in and into the chat and let us know, what are some other things you've heard these called? What are some other things you've learned to call them? And while you're doing that, I'm going to let you know, we're going to debunk some myths about this type of marking, because they are not necessarily what people say they are. Jack says stress rings. Yeah, that is a very common one out there. Absolutely. Have any of you heard the term nerve rings? If you have, give me nerves in the comments box. Have you heard them called nerve rings? Yeah, absolutely, nerve rings. Another really common thing that they get called. Some people call them cramp rings. Have you heard that one too? If you've heard cramp rings, give me cramp in the comments box. All right, so there's a lot of names out there. That's one of the challenges with iridology, is we don't have a unified language. Lots of people are speaking or teaching based on old information. They haven't kept up with the research, and they're using old terminology. So really important for us to get current and to be up to date with the research, right? Do you agree with me that that's important, to be up to date? I hope you do. And if you do, give me an up to date in the comments box. The more you comment in the chat box, the more you're going to get out of me. But, you know, if you're not playing with me here, then I'm going to back away because I'm thinking you're all asleep. All right, let's look at the anatomy of the iris. So we are going to be looking at an iris cross section. So as if we're cutting the iris right here and looking at that cut edge. All right. And as we look at that, this is what it looks like. That is what the cut edge looks like. Well, kind of, sort of, right? We're going to look at a contraction furrow. Now, what I want you to understand is that a contraction furrow is a genetic predisposition. It's there showing us that this person likely spends a lot of time functioning in the sympathetic nervous system. Do you all know the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic? If you do, give me the word difference in the chat box. Jack says, yes, she does. Excellent. Excellent. That is one of the reasons you've got to have your A&P under your belt, because if you don't understand the difference between something as basic as sympathetic, parasympathetic, none of this is going to make sense. Yeah, we're seeing comments here, fight and flight versus rest and digest. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you'll see that a contraction furrow is a wrinkle. What happens here is, and I want you to notice this is the anterior border layer. It's the layer facing the world. This is the back side of the iris down here, the posterior epithelium. Whoops. pop it back one. Notice that where the contraction furrow is, there's also a wrinkle in the posterior epithelium. These layers of tissue crinkle in parallel. Right. So when the pupil is large like this, all of this iris tissue is compressed and it doesn't telescope. Instead, it crinkles like fabric. It creates these wrinkles. And so when that pupil is large, this person is in the sympathetic response or they're in very dim light, and that iris tissue compresses and it creates these wrinkles in the fabric of the iris. What we know is that when fabric is wrinkled in the same place repeatedly, you form permacreases, right? So this is one person. I want you to look. The next two slides are the same person with different shutter speeds and different light settings. And I want you to notice the difference in the eye. Pupil is much smaller. We see a lot more detail. With the frontal lighting, the light is filling the wrinkles. It's filling in where there should be shadows. When we turn off one light, so we only have one light, now can you see the wrinkles in the eyeball? Can you see the wrinkles? If you can, give me a yes in the comments box. Can you see the wrinkles? Yes? All right, same eye, different lighting, right? Different shutter speed. This is so important. You will see people showing you images like this one and then this one and saying, look, we've healed the contraction furrows. This person no longer is suffering the effects of stress. That's a lie, an absolute lie. The thing that has changed here is the lighting. The tech has changed. All right. We don't heal contraction furrows. They are permacreases. They are genetically cued, and that is why they are there. So these last three slides have been of one of my clients, and this shows us that she is predisposed to internalizing her stress. That's how she deals with it. She internalizes it, and then it affects her moods. She is a drama queen. A hangnail or a broken fingernail is a life-altering experience. Now I can say this, she's my daughter. Okay, I would never speak about a client like that, a genuine paid-for client like that. This is my daughter, and she knows she's a drama queen, right? And so we need to then consider, what do these rings mean? And what do we know about her? She has a high-carb diet. She doesn't consistently take supplements. She eats a lot of junk food. She's in her mid-20s. She's on her own now, and she's forgotten everything I ever taught her. Now, the eyes do not tell us that she is currently under stress definitively, because when we're working from a photograph, the light will alter the pupil size. We've seen that, right? We've seen that with these photos. And so we can't determine that whether she's under stress or not by looking at a photo. We would want to look at her eyes in real life, have her sitting across from us, have a look. Pupils are gargantuan. She is probably in that sympathetic mode and needs some support. All right. When we look at these eye photos, though, it does tell us that she is very prone to internalizing stress, because to get these wrinkles, her pupil has spent a lot of time dilated. Okay. We also, how these are sitting in the eye also tells us where her body will feel the stress most acutely. My experience has been that when we have contraction furrows, it increases the person's risk of overreacting to normal events of life if they are not well nourished and if they have not learned good coping strategies. So our job as professionals is to coach these people on improved nutrition, recommend appropriate supplements if that is a scope of practice that we are able to work with. Teach them life skills. And it can even just be simple things that you have learned to do, and you're just sharing information, right? And so, with her, it's, you need some downtime. When you get home from work, you need to go and watch a funny show for 20 minutes just to clear your head of everything that happened at work. Or you need to be more physically active. And getting 20 to 30 minutes of physical activity every day is really going to help to balance those stress hormones and it's going to help you to cope with the day-to-day stress. So those are the kinds of things that we may want to recommend for someone who's got contraction furrows. Now, just as proof that contraction furrows are inherent, these are genetically set. These are the eyes of a little girl. She was 2 years old when we took these photos. Look at those contraction furrows and look at how obvious they are, even with frontal lighting. Oh my goodness, she's got so many of them. No, she is not, as I was originally taught, heading for a nervous breakdown. That was my original training. You see 3 or more rings around the eye, she's heading for a nervous breakdown. She is not. Let's look at the family history. These are her parents. Her parents both have very obvious contraction furrows. Dad has obvious ones with frontal lighting. Mom has obvious ones with side lighting. This child is definitely the offspring of her parents. And so what we know is both of her parents are prone to anxiety and depression. They've actually, as a result of that tendency, have done a few things. Number one, they've cleaned up their diet dramatically. Number two, they've both studied to become life coaches. He is not practicing as a life coach. She is getting ready to start her business. And number three, they take supplements consistently. They also have really, really worked to be very loving and supportive of each other and of their daughter. And they feed their daughter generally good foods. Every family has a cheat day, right? And so they have their cheat days once in a while, but they work very, very hard to make sure that the nutrition is superior and that there is time and space for everybody to express emotions constructively, and that there is support to work through emotions. And that helps these people manage their stress really, really well. This is another little girl. She was 2 years old when we took these pictures, did an amazing job. They're not completely focused, but you don't always get perfect focus with a young child. Her mother, she is a third generation client. Her mother is an active client, and the grandmother of this little girl was a client of mine about 35 years ago. And so mom brought this little girl to me because all of a sudden this little girl hit the terrible twos, and she displayed terrible twos as having massive meltdowns that would last for hours. This little girl, if she lost her favorite blanket, if she couldn't find her favorite stuffy, she would go into a screaming fit that could last for 8 hours. And there was nothing mom and dad could do to interrupt that and to calm her down. So remember that when we see contraction furrows, it says she internalizes her stress. So what are the nutrients the body needs in order to manage the nervous system effectively? There are 4 specific nutrients the body needs to manage the nervous system well. There may be more than that, but there's 4 core. What do you know? What are those 4 core nutrients? By the way, this is how I teach classes. I want you to dig into your knowledge and tie it to what we're learning. Jack says B vitamins. Absolutely. There's 1 down. What are the other 3? Magnesium. Yes. Potassium, a little less. It is important. If we wanted 5, we would put potassium there. Good suggestions, Jennifer. So we've got B vitamins, magnesium, 2 more. What is a helper vitamin for B vitamins? B vitamins work best when taken in conjunction with vitamin C. And Joe and Veronica both called on the calcium as well. Brilliant. B, C, calcium, magnesium. Well done. Well done. So now this little girl, their family is very nutrition conscious, not to a stuffy level, not to a totally restrictive level. All foods are cooked from scratch. Just about all of them are organic. And so mom was outlining her little girl's diet, and this little girl lives on fruit. And I had to point out, fruit is good, but not in excess. We need to balance this out. So we got a liquid B complex for this child. And because of what we see in her eyes, we knew it probably needed to be methylated. We also got the mom to reduce the fruit to no more than 1 serving per day and to replace it with vegetables and proteins and good fats. Can we work in some avocado? Can we get some veggies happening here? What can we do as a protein snack? And within less than a week, the mom sent me an email saying, "Thank you. My sweet little girl is back. I had no idea that something that is as healthy as fruit, when taken in excess, could create such an imbalance." So in order for us to be able to make those nutritional, whether they're dietary or supplement recommendations, we have to know the current nutritional status. We have to know, we don't just look at the eye and say, here's the problem. We have to ask the questions. The eye tells us what questions to ask. The eye says this little girl internalizes her stress. We have to understand the nutrients that are needed. We have to then look back at her eating patterns to decide, are those nutritional needs being met? And if they are not, how do we instruct this client to modify? How do we coach this client to modify the diet? Is this making sense? That we are not diagnosing from the eye. We are not making prescriptive recommendations from the eye. We use the eye in conjunction with the history, with what we know, and we build from there. All right, good. So some of you still are awake. This is good news. Karen Choate, also a certified grad, said, "Judith Cobb has been one of those teachers who's made a difference in my life. She's a born teacher, meaning she has incredible knowledge to share in her field of expertise, patience with her students, whether you are completely new to the field or a person who has taken iridology courses with other teachers, and most importantly, the passion to ensure that all of her students are well-versed, comfortable with what they've learned, and are poised for success. Judith has always been generous with her time and is always willing to discuss any questions that I occasionally have had with unusual cases in my practice. I began implementing what I had learned in her course into my practice before I had even finished her classes, and it has been an invaluable tool in my office. I cannot say enough about Judith and any course that she teaches, and if you are considering studying iridology, look no further." I love this, that she says, willing to discuss any questions. In the scope of the dynamic iridology course, twice a month, we have live web-based mentoring sessions where students can bring any cases, any questions, whether it's specifically about iridology, whether it's the business of iridology, iridology equipment. The office hours mentoring sessions are where we cover, discuss what students' needs are beyond curriculum, including curriculum if we need to. And so, yes, students and graduates are never kicked out of the office hours. Their access is never cut off. Karen comes back frequently, even though she graduated in 2017. Here's another really excellent set of eyes. This was a little boy, 10 years old. He was in the process of being diagnosed or assessed by the medical world for ADD, ADHD. Now, when we are facing that kind of a recommendation, we need to, again, ask a lot of questions. And so, what are some of the nutrients that you would want to recommend besides B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium for people who have nervous system imbalances? Again, these eyes suggest this child has that inherent potential of some kind of a nervous system imbalance. So what are some other nutrients you would recognize? We've got the core 4, but there are more that can be helpful here. What do you suggest? Just for supplements, chamomile, mint, other things for the nervous system? Lavender, lovely. Ashwagandha, L-theanine. These are really, really good suggestions. Excellent. I love the way you're drawing on what you already know. So when I look at these eyes, and as I talked with his family about their nutrition, about his behaviors, about what was going on, I think he's a normal 10-year-old boy. I think he's a normal 10-year-old boy who is a kinesthetic learner. I think that making him sit in a classroom is a mistake. I think giving him experiential learning activities, would make him absolutely soar. But in overcrowded classrooms, that cannot happen. So we had to look at what we could do. Certainly, there was some dietary correction that was needed. We needed to reduce the refined carbs, increase the protein, get more protein spread throughout the day to balance the blood sugars, because ADD and ADHD often has an element of needing to get the blood sugars balanced. Jack says they used to tie me to my desk with a skipping rope. Oh my goodness, how archaic, how archaic. So some other supplements that I recommended for this young boy, we did do B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium. He wasn't great at swallowing tablets and capsules, so I had to do my best to try to find liquids or chewies for him. Most of the chewies that are on the market, the gummies, not worth taking home. Their concentration of nutrition is so low and they're loaded with so much sugar, it's not even funny. Other things that we did for him, I have a lovely liquid omega-3 that actually tastes really good. Lemon balm and chamomile are some other things that we suggested. There are some other indicators here that suggest that his liver might be inherently out of balance or might constantly need a bit of nurturing. So adding a little support for the liver is a really smart thing to do for this young man. And so the question then, and this is why we need to have the NP, why would I want to support his liver? What would the liver have to do with how his nervous system functions? What are your best ideas there? Jack says the liver rules. Yes, the liver absolutely does rule. Jennifer is wondering about digestion, the role the liver plays with digestion. Absolutely. Michelle is wondering about MTHFR. Liver is where you store feelings, primarily anger, bitterness, and resentment. Chana says it manages hormones. You're all on the fringes of what I'm driving at. Good work, though. Good work. I love this, that you're thinking, that you're digging into what you already know. So liver takes the carbohydrates and it creates the cholesterol. Cholesterol is the building block for many of your neurotransmitters and all of your steroid hormones. And so if his liver is not wanting to work properly, if it's not getting the nutrition it needs, if it's not balanced, we are not going to get that chain of events happening. Liver also plays significant roles in helping to balance blood sugars. It works with the pancreas to do that. So we need to, in this young man's case, we really needed to make sure the liver was being nourished and nurtured so that it could, at the very foundation, make sure that things were going right. Liver also stores many of our B vitamins. So if the liver's not working, is he going to store his B vitamins appropriately? And so many of our B vitamins are water soluble, but the liver can store a little bit of them. So we need that liver to be happy. And the liver itself demands B vitamins to function well. So are you beginning to see that the eyes, connected with anatomy and physiology, connected with what the client's issues are, what their goals are, guides the questions we need to ask? And we need to be able to create that understanding of how his body's working to know which way to go and what to recommend. Is this making sense? If it is, give me a makes sense in the comments box. Chana's saying it makes sense. Thanks for that, Chana. I appreciate it. Yeah, and Jack, Brandy, Veronica, Michelle, so good, so good. Professor Petty, so glad to have you here, Prof. It's always good to see you. All right, so this is so good. This is why we don't look at just one marking and make an assessment from one marking and create a program from one marking. It may not be the whole story. In fact, it may not even be the story we need to focus on. We may need to focus elsewhere as the root cause to work on the problem that is a symptom way over here, right? Okay, so interesting story. We were getting such good results. And I know that because his mother sent me an email one night. She had broken her ankle, had had surgery, had to be off it for 6 weeks. I can't imagine being laid up for 6 weeks. And so she called him into her room one night and she said, "Hey, do you want to play cards?" So he said, "Sure, I'll play a game of cards with you." So they played around. I think it was Old Maid. She said he made it through a whole game. And then he said, "You want to go again, Mom?" They played a second game of Old Maid. And then that was done. And then he said, "You want to go again, Mom?" And he made it halfway through the third game before he went, "Yeah, I'm bored." Now that is remarkable because she said never in his history had he made it through even one game of Old Maid before. Amazing, right? By working on his nutrition and his supplements. So, so, so wonderful. And we wouldn't have known to address all of those angles if we had not looked at his eyes. So this is from Selena McKenzie. Just wanted to take a moment of your time and put out a huge thank you out there. I have been learning so much in my first few weeks. She was only 4 weeks into the course. First few weeks of class, and it's been a true blessing. As an educator in my field of study, I feel as though I've taken so many continued education courses, and I really appreciate your detailed course. I particularly enjoy being able to review the mini videos throughout my busy work week. I've always learned best by audio and really feel that it's the glue in your course for me. I'm super excited to see what's in store in the coming weeks. I'm so looking forward to being able to build this amazing process into my practice. I think it will be well received by all of my clients, young and old. Brilliant. Here is another case. Now, this is a woman who, again, she did have a lot of stress in her life. We can see she's got contraction furrows. When she was an active client, the doctors couldn't make up their mind. She'd go in for one exam and she had all these symptoms that suggested she had multiple sclerosis, and they would do an MRI and, yeah, we see lesions. It's definitely MS. And then a few years later, she'd go back, they'd do another one. There were no lesions. They'd say, "No, you don't have MS, but you've still got all the symptoms." And so aside from the stress of that and having symptoms that looked like MS, she had a lot of stress in her life as well. And so when we look at that and we see this, we know we're looking at someone who, again, internalizes stress, which means that when she's undergoing any stress, it's going to make her burn through those nerve nutrients quickly. So we're probably going to want to have that base layer of those nerve nutrients happening every day. We're probably going to want to teach her that when she can see something stressful coming at her, she needs to increase some of those nutrients until that stress is over. And then when she's feeling like she's got her feet back under her, she can reduce them again. There's a lot of other markers in her eyes that play with these contraction furrows, that modify how we assess these contraction furrows. We don't have time to go into them today, but it's interesting that many of these other markers intensify the value of the contraction furrows. Okay? And that's why, again, why we need to understand not just individual markings, but how do these markings work together? How does one marking modify the assessment of another marking, right? So important. Now, we've looked mostly at light colored eyes. So here we're looking at a true hematogenic eye, a true brown eye. We've got all of these contraction furrows in here. This was a young man, 24 years old when we took these pictures. High anxiety, real strong history of depression, had cycles of doing antidepressants, extremely poor diet, very, very high in refined carbohydrates, typically 2 liters of fizzy, sugary beverages a day. For those in the US, that's roughly 2 quarts, whether he needed it or not. That was what he drank instead of water. Very sedentary lifestyle, no physical activity, a lot of time gaming online, and a lot of time just sitting around watching television. Now, the eyes, again, don't tell us that he's under stress, but it says that he internalizes his stress. Tells us that when he's under stress and not properly nourished, he's going to feel the stress more acutely. For him, that stress is going to go into depression. Right? Some people will get angry. Some people will get agitated. Some people might get tired and want to go sleep it off. For him, he gets depressed. He gets paralyzingly depressed. And so in knowing that, and he would, again, cycle on and off his antidepressants. He'd be on them for a while, then he'd be feeling good and he'd take himself off them. And I'm not saying antidepressants are a good answer. What I'm saying is, for some clients, they buy us time to find better answers. If those clients are willing to apply themselves and make some definite life changes in the right direction, they will be able to, in most cases, get off the antidepressants and have an excellent quality of life. And so that was our goal for this young man, was to help him correct his diet, help him get some physical activity, because there's been some really good studies that show that 30 minutes a day of moderate physical activity has the same impact on depression as on mild to moderate depression as an antidepressant. Right. So we wanted to get him being physically active. We wanted to clean up his diet, and we wanted to get him taking a few basic supplements, even just a really good methylated B vitamin. And for him, I would absolutely go methylated because of things I see in his eyes. And I would, and that would be our starting point. Jack is saying, look at his sclera. He has gout. He's had gout since he was 17. Systemic inflammation, correct? And that's what that sclera is telling us, along with a few other things. And so we tried to keep it simple: minimal supplements, a few key dietary changes. The only dietary change I really encouraged him to do was replace the pop, the fizzy sodas, with water, and to get 30 minutes of activity every day. I didn't even go after his junk food, just the pop. And he was not able to do it. It was too big. That's his ingrained patterns, and he did not want to change, did not believe he could. And so, again, when we see these contraction furrows, depending on how they're sitting, helps us understand which organs will be most under stress, depending on where they're sitting, and different shapes and different configurations of them helps us to understand more things about how his nervous system is going to respond in a stressful situation. And so that is our highlights overview, and a really high level overview of contraction furrows. There's so much more that we could talk about. It's one entire 2-hour lesson in the dynamic iridology assessment system to learn about contraction furrows. So that's the introduction. So if you want to go deeper, if you want to know more about this, the dynamic iridology assessment system is the only live, online, fully mentored, I might say excessively mentored if there is such a thing, course for health professionals. And I define a health professional as anyone who has an anatomy, a college level anatomy and physiology course under their belt. So you might have that from, I don't know, maybe you were in a general course in university and you had to do an anatomy and physiology course to meet some science requirements, but you ended up in architecture. That's okay. You've got the A&P. Let's talk. If you want to learn iridology, let's talk. The goal here, I'm going to backtrack, is to teach you how to do an iris assessment, not necessarily a complete iris assessment, but a functional iris assessment when you are with your client, so that you can create their program when you are with your client. Too many iridology teachers teach you, take the eye photos, then go and spend 2 or 3 hours creating this beautiful written report of everything you see in the eyes, and then take that back to your client and overwhelm your client and give them every recommendation they need to be healthy for the rest of their life. I will tell you that that is a waste of time, because it overwhelms your client. They don't know which of the information you've given them they should be starting with, where they should focus their energies. I teach you how to look at the eye, how to make the assessment based on what your client has asked for help with, and then how to create that program, that startup program that has maybe 2 or 3 specific dietary changes, maybe a couple of supplement recommendations, so that you can give your client a program that they can actually begin to implement as soon as they leave your office and experience success with so that they want to come back and tell you they've been successful, and they want to know what comes next. Now we've taken care of that problem. I know what I'm doing. And now I can see clearly I've got this issue. How do we deal with this issue? It's a great way to build a relationship with your client, which is how I've done it with my clients. I've got clients that have been with me now for 4 decades. Actually, since I've got clients that have been with me since day one. And it's just a great way, again, to build that relationship and to help them achieve the health goals they want to achieve without ever feeling overwhelmed. And it means you don't work overtime creating programs and doing assessments. You're getting it done when you're with your client. So if that sounds like something that you are interested in learning more about, let's have you hop on a Zoom call with me. Again, this isn't a high pressure sales pitch. It's really us deciding, talking about, is this a good fit for you? Is this something that you really would benefit from doing at this stage in your practice? And are you ready to begin? Right. And so again, Jack says definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. We've had several people who are with us today who've done that call with me. And I think they would each vouch for the fact that that call is not a high pressure sales pitch. It is absolutely a conversation for us to get together. Veronica says best investment. Love that. Love that. Thank you, Veronica and Jack, for your comments. Joyce Lee came to me as a clinical aromatherapist. She said, I took an iridology course from another school a few years ago, but I was left feeling inadequately trained and with no confidence in the material or my abilities to perform accurate assessments. Judith Cobb, on the other hand, is a wonderful instructor. She presents the material in this course in a concise, organized way. She clearly answers every question asked, no matter how trivial the student may think it is. Judith structures the classes in a way that makes them incredibly interesting. Clarification is clearly established through her instruction, discussion, and student participation. Upon completion of Judith's course, I feel very confident in my abilities and excited to offer iridology services to my clients. This course is an incredible value, highly recommended. So great, so great. So now that you have seen a little bit about, learned a little bit about contraction furrows, I want to know from you, what was one takeaway you picked up from our discussion of contraction furrows? What was one takeaway you learned? Maybe something that was clarified for you, maybe something that was brand new for you, something that you think you could actually use with a client in your practice right now. Going to give you just a minute to type that in. What was one thing you learned? Jack says, keep your liver happy. Jennifer says, stress can be viewed through the lens of the eyes. Amit says, I think it shows they run in sympathetic overload. Joe says they internalize stress. Chana says, in times of stress, could use more nourishment. Love that. Love that. Prof says, seeing the children and genetic markers. Yes, yes. Think of, if you're working with children, how seeing those contraction furrows in your eyes would allow you to share information with the parents of those children that could help those children have an entirely different growing up experience, right? And even to share that information with an adult, for the adult him or herself, for them to realize, no, they don't necessarily need an antidepressant. There are things they have control over, like their nutrition, their daily activities. I've had clients come to me and say the thing they love about working with me is the way I give them back the power to have control of their health, right? And that's the benefit of iridology, is us being able to help our clients understand the control they have of their health, how much impact they can have on their health. So with that, I love the comments. Thank you so much for all your interactions. Brandy is saying, just going to come back here. Proper nourishment of the body can assist in relieving stresses. Genetic predispositions depends on how a person will process stresses in their life. Yes, Jack says, you always helped me understand. Love it. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Thank you all for your fantastic comments today. I have appreciated your interaction today. I appreciate it when my students in our classes also interact and share with me that they are internalizing the information. I see questions as a student thinking through and processing information and internalizing it and figuring out ways to apply it. And so your comments show me that you are doing that. And I truly appreciate that. That is the goal of every good instructor, is to help their student understand and internalize. And Jennifer says, thank you. I'm currently finishing my PhD in nursing sciences and I'm working full time. I aim to defend my dissertation May 2024. As soon as school is out, I'll reach out for your course. I would love to incorporate this into my research and practice. Oh, Jennifer, that would be so exciting. I'm going to make a note to make sure that we do touch base because yes. Amit says, everyone should make a Zoom call with Judith and you won't regret talking to her. Amit should know. Amit, can I tell stories on you? I won't share anything you don't. Yes, please. Amit had his call yesterday, right? It was yesterday, Amit? And really, we chatted for 45 minutes. And by the end of the call, he pretty much within about an hour clicked the button to get enrolled. And just so excited to have him in the course. With his background and training, he's going to add so much breadth to the cohort that he's in. Just so excited for that. Veronica says, if you want to be best, learn from best. Judith is the best teacher. Thank you, Veronica. Appreciate that. So again, just inviting you to book a call. Let's talk. Let's see if it's a good fit. Let's see if this is something that will work for you. And yeah, and let's just talk. No pressure, no stress. And again, I'm just here to coach you on that 45 minutes. Consider it a coaching call for what direction would be of benefit to you in your business and in your work. With that, my friends, I must run. I have a client at the top of the hour. I will talk to you soon. Thank you for being here. Take care. Bye for now.